giving you useful and practical tips to help you make more money selling travel. This is the Art of Selling Travel Podcast, and here to guide you through it all, your host, Glenda Beagle.
Okay, guys, so today I have the most fabulous episode for you. We are so excited to be able to bring with us this time Sandra Moffat from the Irish Tourism Board here in Canada. And so welcome, Sandra.
Hi, Glenda. Good to be here.
Fabulous. Well, I'm super excited because I know a lot of people have Ireland at the top of their list. In fact, over the last number of years, Italy and Ireland, at least for Canadians, seem to like flip up and down as to which one's in the lead.
Yeah, we make a lot of top three lists, which is always great. And what we hear about Ireland is a lot is that it's on everybody's bucket list. But I suppose our objective is to get it top of that list, make people want to go and want to go now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I think that's the beauty of the pandemic is it brought a lot of people to be like, wait, that list is getting longer as I sat at home watching TikTok videos and things like that. So now it's time to get out there and get going. So on this episode, I really kind of wanted to, we're going to talk about Ireland as a whole, but I really wanted to kick it off with a conversation about if you've never been to Ireland and possibly have never sold it before, what are kind of those things that tend to hold travel advisors back from saying, yes, I can help you?
Yeah, I suppose there's a few things, right? I suppose there's a lot of myths and misconceptions about Ireland that we see. And I think that can often hold people up in that it's easy to sell sun, for example. It's super easy to send people to the Caribbean. It's all inclusive. It's easy. Where when you're going over to Europe, you mentioned Italy, Ireland, it can be a little bit more complex. One thing about Ireland is it's at the edge of Europe. So we like to say, we're the first port of call if you're planning a European vacation or destination. But Ireland specifically, I think a lot of people are concerned about the weather. And that's certainly what we hear from consumers. And then, I think agents as well are a little bit more cautious about maybe sending people over to Ireland because they don't know really when to send them, what time of year to send them. But I think it is a big misconception about Ireland that it rains all the time. I know people tend to think that it's wet and it's cold all the time. And it does rain a bit, not going to pretend that it doesn't. That's what makes it so lush and so green and why we call it the Emerald Isle. But I think a lot of people who come back from their visit to Ireland say, we were so lucky, or it was sunny half the time, or it was sunny most of the time, or we got the best weather. So, that does happen quite a lot. It's quite common. We have a lot more clear and sunny days than you think there. So I think that comes as a nice surprise to visitors and something that maybe agents could use to reassure people that, it is going to be mild and moderate. It's a year-round destination for that reason, which is so great. I love, despite the little bit of rain that we do get, that the climate is mild and moderate. As much as I love my Canadian winters, the snow is very picturesque. It's very beautiful, but there is something lovely about going back home during the winter season, and it's a balmy 6 degrees or above throughout the entire season. And, you don't have to get prepared to leave the house with layers and layers of clothing, for example. So I would say definitely don't let that hold you back. It is a year round. You can go anytime. The summertime off season, that winter is super nice as well. Other than that, I think some things are, how long do I go for? We get that a lot. One thing I would say is not to try and pack everything into a few days. So it might be small. It's 3 hours east to west, for example, to go from Dublin to Galway. But along the routes, there's so much to see and do, and you're going to completely miss the joy of being there if you are racing from site to site, place to place. Journey times can be super short, but you're going to miss the photo stops. You're going to miss some of the magic. You want to stop off in the village, have a pub lunch, something like that. Life can move wonderfully slow in Ireland. It's some of the magic of it. And so if you really want happy and satisfied clients, I would say choose the routes wisely. Don't think you can do it all in 5 or 6 days. If they only have 5 or 6 days, there's definitely ways to package that. But Google Maps can be a little bit misleading, I would say sometimes. And it might tell you that you can do X, Y, and Z in one day, but you really can't. You might encounter an Irish traffic jam, which is a herd of sheep or cows on the road, for example.
I love it. That actually would be on the top of my bucket list. I'm a country girl from Alberta. So to have that Irish traffic jam and be like, yes, these are my people. This is where I belong.
they're the moments that you remember from the vacations, right? But you certainly don't want to be stressing out about missing a reservation or somewhere that you have to be if that happens. You want to be able to step back and take in the beauty of it.
That's awesome. So now, if you've never been there, you've never sold it, and possibly don't even know a lot about it, which side of the road do they drive on?
So side of the road is on the left side of the road, so opposite to what we do here in Canada. I think that people get a little bit scared and freaked out about, getting clients to do a self-drive, but it is really, really easy. I book ahead if you want to get car rentals though. I think this applies all over Europe, but at the moment, the car rental stock is relatively low. But what I think agents should definitely do is make sure their clients have an automatic and good insurance. They're the two things. We typically drive manual cars over in Ireland, so getting an automatic can be a little trickier. But even when I go back now, I learned to drive in a manual car, driving stick. When I go back, it just takes the stress off. Just having an automatic, you don't have to think about being on the other side of the road and moving gears. So yeah, book it early, get your automatic, make sure you full insurance. You don't have to worry about that. Another thing that people also seem to think is that there's the border between Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland, for example. So the currency is a basic question, but euro in the Republic of Ireland and then Great British Pound in Northern Ireland. But the only thing that changes between those regions is the governance and the currency. Nothing else really changes. You'll see that the road signs turn from kilometres into miles when you cross that border, but that's the only reason or only way that you'd actually know that you're crossing over.
Okay. And that is a big question that people have in terms of that. Now, obviously, I would always tell people for the small things at the markets or whatever, have cash, but otherwise credit cards would be widely accepted and things like that, right? Credit cards are accepted everywhere,
yeah. Yeah, and I think especially since the pandemic, right? Everything's a QR code and a credit card on tap, so you don't have to worry about that so much.
Yeah. And, that takes off a lot of stress for your clients, because if you are trying to calculate out, okay, well, you're this many days in Northern Ireland and you're this many days in the Republic of Ireland, therefore you're going to need, this much of the euro, this much of the pound, it gets complicated. I always just tell them have a little bit for kind of that walking around money and then just use your credit cards, because it will auto convert for you and you don't even have to worry about it.
100%. That's what I always do when I'm traveling back home. I'd always have a little bit of cash like that. If you're going to a local small market and you want to pick something up, most of them will still have the credit card machines, but you might get a better deal if you're paying cash. Same for tips. Our tipping culture is a little bit different in Ireland as well. It really is for exemplary service. It's not expected. So they don't have those prompts that you get here in credit card machines for your 10%, 15, 18, whatever it is, tip. So often people will just leave a couple of dollars on the counter for tips.
Okay, that's good to know too. Tipping is different everywhere as you go in the world. And not only is it different in terms of how much or things like that, it's also different in terms of what does it signify or what does it mean. There are parts of the world where if you tip, leave tips, that can actually be offensive. So that's something that you want to know. Is it expected? Is it just for that exemplary like it is in Ireland and things like that? I personally love the idea of tipping for exemplary rather than just because I got to eat.
Exactly that. Yeah, and don't worry. The Irish people definitely won't get offended if you tip. They'll be more than happy to accept them. But it's for that great service. But it's something we're known for as well, which is that exemplary service. Mm-hmm. So, it's just for groups of 8 or more, for example, there might be a service charge built into a bill. But other than that, you won't see tips or anything like that added in as part of the package like you get here. So just be prepared for that.
Awesome. No, and that's fantastic. So now, if you've got clients who, maybe their cruise starts or ends in Dublin and they say, I've only got like 2 nights or 3 nights to add on. Would you suggest that they just stay in Dublin because there's enough to do there, or should they plan to do more?
You can do a bit of both. So definitely do Dublin. If you're in the cruise ports, do Dublin. Take a hop off, hop on tour. You can see the sights of the city, for example. The humor from the guides on those tours is like second to none. I take it nearly every time I'm back, even though I know the sights and I know the stories, but they're just so funny. And it's not those automated headsets. You can get those if you need different languages and you get the translations, but it's a live guide and they're a ton of fun. So see the city that way if you have a short amount of time. Dublin has a lot of medieval architecture, it has Viking remnants, it has a castle right in the heart of the city. There's a lot to see and do definitely in the heart of the city. Really easy to get around, really walkable if you don't want to take one of those bus tours. And you can see a lot in a short amount of time. So, for example, for people interested in history and culture, you can see the impact of our 1916 Easter Rising on the GPO, a stunning building in the heart of the city. You can go and learn about our political history at Kilmainham Jail. You can go to the Guinness storehouse and learn how to pull the perfect pint of Guinness. So lots to do. But then outside of the city as well, you don't even have to leave Dublin to experience a little bit of nature. There's lots of day trips you can take. There's a local train called the Dart, is what we call it. And that'll take you to one of the local towns. You can go north, go to somewhere like Howth. They have a stunning cliff walk. There's a fishing village, get some ice cream. Dalkey, Dunleary, Bray. There's tons of little fishing villages and towns near the city itself. If you have a little bit more time, you can venture further afield, whether you want to go to Wicklow, Belfast, Galway, lots of other options there as well.
Awesome. So something that I'm hearing you say there is, so for people who have clients who are tired of the sun, they want to start exploring Europe, or maybe they've done a couple of those coach tours and they just want a destination that they could go do on their own. From what I'm hearing, Ireland would actually be a great introduction destination for that.
We see a lot of solo travelers and solo female travelers as well, because like that, it's easy to get to. We've direct flights from all across Canada, Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal, Toronto. We are English speaking, and there are Irish speaking areas of Ireland. I can get into that if you'd like, but it's easy. It's easy to get to. It's easy to get around, whether you're driving, whether you're getting public transport. We have a really great rail network. So if you want to travel sustainably, that's a great option as well. And so it definitely is. We're seeing a high proportion of solo travelers, especially since the pandemic.
For sure. And even I'm thinking those that are maybe in their 50s or 60s, again, coming from a rural area, they maybe haven't traveled a whole lot. I just think of my parents in particular, when I first started sending them to different places. They were fine all throughout North America, Canada, US, they were fine. They could go do their own thing. But when we started sending them further, it was that I don't know how to get around. I don't know how to do things. And so, as opposed to other countries where all the signage is in their own language, it would also be easier to read, like when you're at the train station or the bus station and things like that.
Exactly that. And we're known for our 100,000 welcomes. You might have heard the phrase Céad Míle Fáilte. There's something about that warm Irish welcome that the Irish will stop and help you with directions before you even know you're lost. So you definitely don't need to worry about that.
I love it. And so that in itself too, it's just that reassurance. But obviously too, it's a fabulous coach destination. So those that want to do the guided vacations or the prepackaged, things like that, there's a multitude of options out there. And you're never going to go wrong with a coach tour, especially if that's what the right fit for your client is. But I do love the idea that here's your first sample. This is a great destination to do it on your own. It is so walkable, and the public transportation, everything. And then there's not the language barrier beyond perhaps dialect barrier.
You have to translate our accents a little bit, but just ask someone to speak slower, myself included.
And if it's anything, I have friends from the Maritimes here in Canada. Pre-drinking versus several drinks in, the sounds are a little different too. I would suspect very possible in an Irish pub as the night goes on. So
100%. Yeah. We'll usually just start singing.
I love it. Okay. So now I've started to see things popping up with people who want to go stay in a cottage, or they want to do that long stay. What would it be like in Ireland? Is that a feasible option to be able to go stay there for a month or something and kind of live like a local?
Yeah, 100%. And again, since the pandemic, since people are able to work remotely, spend a little bit more time away, we are seeing an increase in that type of travel. There's lots of self-catering options, and particularly on the west coast of Ireland, that's where you're going to get that really true, gritty, authentic Irish experience. So lots of self-catering cottage rentals there, for example, and in the cities as well, lots of apartments set up for those longer term stays, whether that's 4 weeks to, 6 months, depending on how long people want to be away. So we're seeing people, going for that extended stay. The Wi-Fi network is excellent. We're set up for that. So yeah, definitely something that we're seeing a lot of and that we'd encourage more of, because that way you get to see the real country. You get to meet the locals, you get off the beaten track a little bit as well while you're there.
Fantastic. Perfect. Well, I think that is awesome. We've kind of touched on a little bit of everything. We've touched on the sustainable travel, which I know that's a big up and coming, not necessarily up and coming. It's been there and people have been talking about it, but I think it's really taken on like another life all of its own. And we've talked about the currency and, this, that, the other. Now, what about unique things that are, exclusive to Ireland, or that Ireland offers in a way that nobody else does?
So I guess I kind of touched on this already, but it's the hospitality, right? That would be the one thing. And I'll say a few other things too that I think we do really well. But first and foremost, I gotta say it's the hospitality, that warm Irish welcome, 100,000 welcomes. Ireland's been voted world's friendliest country. I can't even count how many times. It was Condé Nast was the last one, probably last year. And it really comes as no surprise. And the good news on that, I suppose, is you don't need an itinerary to experience that. You don't need to schedule it in. It's something that's going to happen while you're there, which is great. Other things that we do really well that I would say is only in Ireland is live music. It's easy to find. It's around every corner. Whether that is buskers on the streets, it's trad music sessions in a pub, it's part of our DNA. It really, really is. You can make time to see one of the more formal shows for that. There's lots of different ones. The Irish Dance Party, Mary Ploughboy, there's the Johnny Fox's pub in the Dublin Mountains. They do, proper Irish music shows with Irish dancing, but you don't even need to do that. You'll genuinely just stumble across it everywhere on your travels when you're coming around the country.
Yeah, I love that, because you have quite often where people say, well, I just really want to immerse into the culture. And so from what I'm hearing, Ireland is just leave your hotel room and you will find culture.
Kind of, yeah. And, we've so much history as well. The culture is the contemporary culture, like the music, like the dance, but we've also history around every corner. The Irish ABCs, another bloody castle, they're everywhere. They're around every corner. And we've, historical monuments older than Newgrange, or older than the pyramids of Giza, older than Stonehenge, like Newgrange. So yeah, there's a lot of history, a lot of culture. Something that's, really important to Canadians as well, I think, when they're traveling there, is often the heritage, the ancestry connection. Over 4.6 million Canadians claim Irish ancestry. And that figure probably, again, went up during the pandemic when people started doing the research on ancestry.com and 123andMe and things like that. But we're seeing a lot of people travel for that as well, and, really get to see where they came from and where their ancestors were from.
That's awesome. I, in fact, would be one of those 4.6 million. So yeah, I do have the Irish heritage as well. One thing that I know over the years, my clients had always asked me about was, can you actually sleep in like a real castle in Ireland?
I can't even count how many you can. Yeah, so many castles. So a lot of them have been converted into these incredible 5-star hotels. Ashford Castle in County Mayo is probably the most well-known one. But yeah, lots and lots of castles that you can stay in. And one thing about that is it's surprisingly affordable. It's really accessible luxury. So you get that 5-star experience in an Irish castle, but not necessarily at a 5-star price. So definitely don't, rule that out. If you have semi-budget travelers, what a lot of people do is book their clients for the last night in that Irish castle for that really wow experience before they head home.
That's fabulous. I believe it was a friend of mine when she was in Ireland. It might even have been the Ashford Castle. I think it was like falconry school or something like that.
A few of them do that on the grounds, Adare Manor, Ashford Castle, but falconry, you can go play pigeon hunting, you can go fly fishing. All of these activities are all on the grounds of these castles.
See, and I love that, because it's not just, like you said, all the castles and everything else. There's so many more things that it's just more accessible there, and things you get to try. Go spend some time in the fishing villages and just see how people live differently. Get yourself caught in an Irish traffic jam. There's so much to see and do there. Now, what was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought there. I'm so excited. Like, my fear of missing out is like off the charts right now. I just want to circle back. You were saying at the beginning about weather. with the weather, it kind of stays above freezing in the winter. So there's not much, if any, snow. What about in the summer? Is it hot? Is it still kind of mild? What are we looking at for a summer average?
So we're having an Irish heat wave right at this moment. And it's so funny because it just feels like the entire world just leaves the office and just goes out and goes to the beaches. But that would be around 20 to 26 degrees, right? That's our sweet spot. And so it doesn't get really, really hot. There's not the humidity in the air too, because we have that fresh sea air coming off the coast. But it would be a really nice, say 20 to 25, 26 degrees in the summertime. And then that goes down into the teens, into the fall. So it's still really nice. It's really moderate. One of my favorite times of year actually would be September, October into November. And there's just this kind of something in the air there. And we're known as the Emerald Isle, the 40,000 shades of green. But in the fall time, then that all changes to the reds and the oranges. And, it's just a quilt of color. It's amazing, but it's not cold. And then in the winter, as you said, gets to 6 degrees, I'd say would be the average throughout December, January, even into February.
And I can imagine a listener from Florida right now just having a heart failure that we're discussing the fact that that's good weather. But from Alberta in January, that sounds delightful.
Exactly. And it's just easy weather, right? We also say that we have 4 seasons in one day. So we definitely have the 4 distinct seasons. We have the summer, the fall, the winter, the spring, but sometimes it can be a little bit changeable in Ireland. So just one thing that advisors should prepare their clients for is, bring your rain jacket, bring a warm layer, but also be prepared to be in your swimsuit on the beaches.
Awesome. So I think just before we wrap up here, now, obviously we all know about Guinness and, you can definitely, there's lots of cocktails, drinks, other such in the pubs. What about the food? What can people expect to find for food in Ireland?
It's one of the funniest things because I think that is the biggest misconception actually about Ireland is that we're a nation of meat and potatoes. Couldn't be further from the truth, although we do those things really, really well. A lot of seafood is what you'll probably get in Ireland. We have an abundance of it. We're a coastal island nation. So Irish oysters, Atlantic salmon, mussels, freshly foraged seaweed, that's all staples of the Irish diet. As well, people think, maybe you wouldn't be able to get vegan and vegetarian options, but you absolutely will anywhere across the island. Irish dairy is one thing I would say is absolutely unrivaled. It's the one thing I genuinely miss living here in Canada is Irish butter. The flavor is different. The color is even different. It's a rich yellow color from the carotene because all the cows are grass fed because of the weather. They can be grass fed all year. And so the dairy is really rich. It's really special. So you can get pretty much any type of cuisine. But what Ireland does really well is farm to fork, just straight from the ocean to the plate, really natural ingredients.
That's fantastic. And if clients were wanting to know, like, how much is it going to cost me to eat out and things like that, how would you say it compares to North America?
I'd say very similar in the big cities. And then, of course, as you get off the beaten track, the prices go down considerably. So very comparable to what we see here in Canada and North America. We always kind of go on the price of a pint. So if you're in Temple Bar in Dublin, that price is going to go up. If you're in a local pub in Galway, that price is going to go down considerably. But yeah, around the same.
Okay, fantastic. So it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg, because I know a lot of travel advisors, as soon as you start talking about other destinations, they'll be like, oh, it costs so much to eat there. I remember a number of years ago, I had gone with, I'd owned a franchise at that point, and we'd had a franchise owners meeting in Banff. And so I'd spent the weekend in Banff, came home on Sunday, and I think on Tuesday we flew out to Iceland. And it was ironic because people that weekend were telling me, oh, the food in Iceland costs a fortune. And I went there and my husband's like, oh, it's not too bad. I'm like, it's a lot cheaper than it was in Banff, even with all of the currency and things like that. So I think when you are in those major tourist zones, and this is especially for those that might be newer to travel, when you're in a major tourist zone like Dublin, where you're right at the hotels, FYI, eating in a hotel is almost always the most expensive place and the least authentic. It's going to cost you more. But when you go out to where the locals hang and you get out of the main cities and you get off the main path sort of thing, you're going to find pricing that's going to be very doable. And the and the experience is just going to be that much better. There's nothing like a small town bar here in Alberta. It doesn't compare to what goes on in the cities. I'm not somebody who goes to the city. But there's just so much more. The energy is different. The feel is different. Everything about it is different. And I would suspect that you're going to run into something similar in terms of it being different based on where you are, no matter where in the world you are.
Yeah, I think you're so right on that. And I think there is a lovely thing about getting variety of experiences too, right? Like when I'm home, you want to go to a local like food truck, or you want to go to the little fish and chip shop on that coastal town, but you might also want to treat yourself and go to the Michelin star restaurant in the city for a special, moment during your trip. And there is definitely really amazing ones that come at very accessible prices. Like I said, those Irish castles, you can get beautiful afternoon tea in the castle. It feels really special, really extravagant, but it doesn't come at a crazy price point. So there definitely is really accessible options out there as well at the higher end of the scale.
Fabulous. I love it. I love it. So I'm hearing Ireland is affordable. It's beautiful all year round. It doesn't really go below freezing too much. The sun shines a lot more often than you think it does. And that the best part of your trip just might be an Irish traffic jam.
Beautifully summarized. I think there's something as well, just last but not least, just to say we're amazing at festivals. Right? We were saying get it to the top of the bucket list, make it or to make there a reason to go. And there's just something on every other week, every other month. We're the home of Halloween. And Halloween was originated from the ancient pagan festival of Samhain over 3,000 years ago. So we do Halloween in a really big way that people don't really know about. So if you're thinking of sending clients, Halloween, October time can be a really good time to do it. London Derry have a massive kind of 3 to 5 day Halloween festival that was voted the world's best place to spend Halloween by USA Today. There's festivals in Dublin and Belfast all over. And we obviously have St. Patrick's Day. There's surfing festivals. There's food festivals every other weekend. So there's always a reason or a hook to be able to go.
Okay. So I will be explaining to my husband that we are going to go work remotely in Ireland for the next 6 months.
I'll send you some self-catering recommendations.
That would be fabulous. Now, if travel advisors want to know more, where can they get more information about learning about Ireland?
So we have a ton of resources. We have our website, which is ireland.com. So if you want to send clients there just to kind of get them to have a feel for the destination, we have a really good pinning feature that they can pin things that they like, so you get a sense of what they like to see and do. But we also have a dedicated website for our advisors, so trade.ireland.com. And that has all of our webinars. So we do a lot of education, all of our webinars where we'll introduce you to the Irish industry who are going to make that trip extra special for you. As well as tons of marketing materials. So we have a content library full of images, videos. We do toolkits. So if you were looking to promote Ireland on your social media channels, we do full toolkits that we basically give you the social media posts and you just share them to your audiences. So we always say at Tourism Ireland, our job is to make the advisor's life as easy as possible. That's what we're here for. Our contact information is on that site as well. So if anyone's having trouble pulling together an itinerary or just wants some of those unique insider tips or recommendations, that's what we're here for. So yeah, always get in touch with us.
Fabulous. I love it. Now, I'm in a final question, I promise. If you could only go back to one place, because you only have a little bit of time, where would be the first one that comes to mind?
Tricky question. You're putting me on the spot. The Aran Islands for me. The Aran Islands is pure, like just authentic Ireland. It's off the west coast of Galway. You can get a little ferry dingle to Aran Islands ferries, do a little boat across to the Aran Islands. It's where people speak the Irish language. It's known as the Gaeltacht region. And tons of just little tiny pubs there. I can't pick one because I love them all. Loads of little pubs, lots of music, lots of just local authentic experiences, and really great surfing. Not that I'm a great surfer, but they do really good surfing that makes me want to be a really great surfer.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sandra. This has been an absolute pleasure. And I am sure this has been awesome for the travel advisor that's listening to be able to feel more comfortable in selling Ireland. And I look forward to them sending you hundreds and thousands of new clients to come and visit Ireland.
We look forward to welcoming them.
Thank you.